Each specialism wants to preserve itself and therefore tends to give special emphasis and importance towards itself. For instance, you see with Plato that, philosophy was his thing. And of course, what did he think? That philosophers should be ruling the place. The great thinkers. The military think that the military solution is important. And they emphasize that importance and come to think that really the military should be ruling. A military junta better take over, it's better than this mess. The medical profession finds the importance of its occupation and starts to emphasize its role in society, that it should advise the government on all the following things. This is not a democratic decision. This is a decision that's to be made by the medical department, the specialists, the experts, you see. Politicians, on the other hand, think that politics is the answer. And, they're the great mediators, as they see it, of conflict. And this should be the dominant thing. They are the ones that should have the decision as to whether they go to war or have a certain medicine on the market or whatever. The education department, on the other hand, feels that education is most important and should have a greater dominance in socializing and leading our society, possibly to the exclusion of other socializing agents like the family and so on. The police department know the importance of law and order, and really this should be emphasized far more in the way the country is run. We need more police. We need scientists. Well, scientists know it all, don't they? Goodness, we're the only rational people on the earth. We should be running the place. We need more money going to science and research. And each tries to preserve itself. Sadly, it tends to preserve itself as it has been, because, of course, the people that run it are the most experienced, and they're the most experienced in what has been, not in what will need to be in the future. So they are all inherently conservative in terms of their own dominion and occupation. And they tend to be exclusive too. They all try to keep other people out of this elite group that they wish to be. It pushes their rewards and returns and status so much the higher by doing so. So it's hard to get in to each of these specialisms. If we cobble together the elite of some of these key sectors, we end up with a unity or a cartel of specialists that think differently. And if you manage to get them all to think the same, you will simply have a monopoly of power by the elites of the sectors so represented. None of this sounds terribly democratic, does it? And of course, the people, the mass of people, assuming you still have a mass of people, despite this lot, they feel that they should have the dominant say by their democratic process. But their elites may be taken over by the cartel and absorbed into it. Now you might think that this cartel, if it functions at all harmoniously with itself, within itself, will result in massive change. Could do, but more likely change that reverts to the conservative ideals that the cartel is made up of. Its personnel, you see, are the elites of, the matured elites of, and trained by the individual sectors. So it's probably going to be great change back to what was, as they see it, the improved version. Now, the unity of this cartel, of course, is incredibly in question because they do not see eye to eye because they are from different sectors of society. So it's as well for each member to look towards what the end game is, which is, I'd better kill them before they kill me first. Well, it's been known for some time that the weakness of democracy is in this possibility all the time, that someone just democratically, like Hitler, takes over and then destroys democracy. The understood safeguard against that was the plurality of society, that power is distributed. This is a myth, of course. Unfortunately, power is not distributed. Not only does the individual man in the street have virtually no power at all, but collectively they are nothing like the power of the elites. And democracy knows the answer to this. It says, well, the elites themselves should be democratically chosen, but democracy seems to turn on availability of data and information and freedom of speech, which of course societies can find very threatening to their security. Data is not freely available, and there is not freedom of speech. Criticism in the extreme can amount to treason. And if it can't, you may just disappear in the night, inexplicably. And we've seen this in tyrannies around the world through history, haven't we? In fact, history is far more a history of such tyranny, such autocratic control, and wars between rival autocracies, albeit in the 20th century so often claiming to be democratic governments at war with other claimed democratic governments. It's a bit like world wars where Christians were doing their best to annihilate Christians in Europe and dragging in the rest of the world to help. And but for all this appalling evil, how would you appreciate heavenly good? Where would your longing be for heaven and life eternal if life were constantly more or less okay here? Which it clearly isn't for more than half the planet. Why? Presumably because it's more important that more than half the planet is not happy with here at all and longs for heaven and life eternal. Else they will miss out on life eternal. They'll live in life transitory forever, or blank oblivion, and the loss would be infinite. Simple as that. So far from despairing, I thank God that this universe is the way that it is. and that because of being here, I resolve to want life eternal with my view of my Heavenly Father infinitely more than anything else. Thank you, Dad. Society is then dominated by the winners, and they are few. And if you have many winners, you just have the chaos of conflict between them, because they are all limited persons, not angels. Therein lies the fault, and if you would address the problem, you have to address that. How do you turn your society into a society of angels? Well, let me point out that if you do, then this universe will not be achieving what it was set out to do, which is to school us into being right for the kingdom of heaven, life eternal. If you turn it into heaven itself, we're going to need another universe that does this job for us. So I do not crusade against society. Society is a myth. It's the dominance of the leaders, and they tend to be few, and to maintain their position, they tend to be awful, with a few notable exceptions, or at least we've been led to believe there are. Especially, of course, our current leaders, whoever they happen to be. How do you change the population to being angels, and especially without threatening the entrenched position of the leaders? Not simple. And if we succeed, may need another earth to perform the miracle that this earth achieves. And that's an ongoing miracle of the new people that come to it, preparing them too for the kingdom of heaven. We don't want to destroy the classroom. We'll put up with our elites, not be a threat to them, especially in return for the continuing opportunity to nurture some persons to become angels. It's a sort of compromise, isn't it? In traditional terms, the prince of this world puts up with religion. A sort of maimed and handicapped version, but one that still produces a few saints, not so many as to be a threat to the status quo. The head of that sector might be the right-hand man of the monarch, or even the monarch himself, as in the case of Constantine or the royalty of England in the 20th century. Head of the Church of England was the king or queen. No special saintliness is required for this role, only an hereditary right in this particular case. And in the case of the underlings, the bishops and archbishops and so on, well, they're democratically selected by the elite within the church. And there's a certain integrity that if you've been bought by society, you remain bought and faithful and true to the one that's bought you. So the religion itself can become part of this ruling elite that dominates the society. But it may, of course, like any particular sector, may be left out, be despised by the others, and denigrated accordingly. But too little of the values of godliness in a society cause it to collapse. Witness the empire of the Soviet Union in the 20th century, lasting less than 100 years. Destroyed by an enemy? No, not from without anyway. Collapsed from within. Crippled with competing in the arms race economically, and possibly by a corruption of its own principles. Just disintegrated and was no more. You see, societies need each sector that's in societies. That's why the sector's there. They each have a part to play. If you destroy the military, well, you have no defence against a particularly malicious neighbour. If you destroy the police force, you have no society, you have no civilization. If you destroy education, you have an ignorance that gives you a poverty that's a terrible weakness in the world vis-a-vis other nations. If you destroy the family, you've destroyed the cohesion and integrity of the society's building blocks. You have no society left, just individuals that have no relationship to each other. If you destroyed your health system, you would have no medical knowledge, so necessary to modern warfare in the 21st century. This is not the age of aircraft carriers and missiles that we are entering into. This is the age of disease, weapons, and human robots. If you destroy the media, you have no means of controlling the information that's going to the people. If you destroy democracy, you have no parliament that mediates the differences that tear a society to pieces. If you have no royalty, you must put up with kings that are not trained to be there. Like Stalin and Hitler. In short, be very cautious of major change with major uncertainties that can majorly result in something far more terrible than you thought you were dealing with before. Your technology is changing faster and faster, and you cannot keep up with that sector. Western economies in particular are geared to encouraging such, and its so-called Cold Wars that go on produce weapons that you have less and less control over. Either arrest the rate of technological change, or you must accelerate the rate at which the peoples of the earth become godly, angelic, harmonious, wonderful, people of integrity, grace, non-materialists. That frightening word. And if you can do neither, you will become extinct. It's as simple as that. And how many have become extinct in the past because of this? I wonder, on how many planets, in how many star systems, will we be just another casualty? Quite possibly. And if we are, would that be better than us similarly dominating the universe? Oh, I think so. Thank you, Dad. Now, I have unwittingly proved myself to be right. You see, I, being particularly concerned with, what the world might call religion and what I would call spiritual domain matters, think that it's not getting anything like the important attention that it should get for this society to be blessed and rescued. So I think more should be going into this, quotes, sector of our society. People that, well, are concerned with godliness. I don't want to paint the definition of godliness to look much like previous corrupt notions of godliness, which every religion tends to nurture, of course. To say right values, meaning to life, that which cares for life, brings joy, peace and happiness, health, prosperity, of course, security, happiness of its people, joy. We need to be, I feel, don't I, putting more of our resources and attention to such. Because from the point of view of this sector, it's very necessary to society. We, of course, suspect we are right. There seem to be many that don't think we're right. That could be a big mistake. Tread carefully. I think you could be wrong. Thank you, Dad.